The night shift on Kepler 442b was always quiet. Zarathek liked it that way. She moved through the atmospheric processing station like a ghost, her crystalline skin glowing softly in the dim blue light. The machines hummed around her, cleaning the air that kept the mining colony alive. Zarathek was small, even for a Velnari. Her people were delicate creatures, with skin like living glass that showed their emotions through patterns of light. When she was happy, her skin sparkled like stars. When she was afraid, it turned almost clear, a trick that helped her ancestors hide from predators. Tonight, her skin was darker than usual. The whole colony was scared. The humans were coming. For 3 weeks, the news feeds had been full of stories. Human soldiers were moving through the outer colonies, putting down rebellions. The reports were terrifying. Humans were described as killing machines, creatures that felt no pain and showed no mercy. They came from a death world where everything tried to kill everything else. They were hunters who could chase prey for days without stopping. They don't even look like people, her friend Kesra had whispered during the day shift change. They're tall as trees and strong as mining equipment. They wear black armor, and their faces are hidden behind masks. When they speak, it sounds like metal grinding against metal. Zarathek tried not to think about it as she checked the air filters. Her job was simple, but important. The processing station cleaned the toxic gases from Kepler's atmosphere and made air that her people could breathe. Without places like this, the colony would die in hours. She paused at the main console, watching numbers scroll across the screen. Everything was working normally. The station would run itself for most of the night. She just needed to check on it every few hours and fix small problems when they came up. A news alert flashed on her personal communicator. She almost didn't want to read it. Human naval forces deploy to Kepler sector, the headline said. Colonial authority authorizes military action. Her skin flickered with nervous light. The humans were closer than anyone had thought. She tried to focus on her work, but her mind kept wandering. What did humans really look like under their armor? The pictures on the news were always unclear, showing dark shapes moving through smoke and fire. Some people said humans had no eyes, just empty holes in their faces. Others claimed they had too many teeth, or claws, instead of fingers. The only thing everyone agreed on was that humans were dangerous. Zarathek's people had never been fighters. The Velnari were engineers and artists, builders and dreamers. They made beautiful things and solved complex problems. When threatened, they hid or ran away. It had worked for thousands of years on their homeworld, but there was nowhere to run in space. The processing station was built into the side of a mountain, far from the main colony. Zarathek liked working here because it was peaceful. Tonight, the distance felt dangerous. If something happened, no one would hear her call for help. She walked to the main window and looked out at the colony below. Lights twinkled in the darkness like earthbound stars. Somewhere down there, people were sleeping in their beds, trusting that tomorrow would be like today. Children were dreaming of games and stories. Parents were planning birthday parties and family visits. None of them knew that human warships were probably already in the system. A meteorite streaked across the sky, burning up in the atmosphere. At least, Zarathek hoped it was a meteorite. It could have been a human drop pod. The news said humans liked to attack at night, when their enemies were sleeping and unprepared. She checked her communicator again. No new messages from the colony administration. That was either very good or very bad. Maybe the humans weren't coming after all. Maybe they would skip Kepler 442b and go somewhere else. Or maybe the colony's communication system was already down. Her skin dimmed with fear. She tried to calm herself by thinking about other things. Her sister's wedding was next month. She had been working extra shifts to save money for a nice gift. Her nephew had just learned to walk and kept sending her videos of his first steps. Her mother was teaching a new art class at the community center. Normal things, good things, things that made life worth living. But even as she thought about her family, part of her mind was listening to the sounds around her. The hum of the air processors, the whistle of wind through the mountain passes, the distant rumble of mining equipment working through the night. No sounds of engines, no sounds of weapons, no sounds of... The lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a second later, bathing everything in angry red light. Alarms began to scream from every speaker in the station. Zarathek's skin flashed bright with panic as she ran to the main console. Orbital attack detected, the computer announced in its calm, mechanical voice. All personnel report to emergency stations. Prepare for hostile contact. Quote. Aware. Quote. Through the window, Zarathek could see new lights in the sky. Not meteorites. Not stars. Ships. Big ships with engines like tiny suns, falling toward the colony like burning rain. The humans had arrived. Her hands shook as she tried to follow emergency procedures, but her mind was blank with terror. She had practiced these steps 100 times, but now she couldn't remember what to do first. The ships were getting bigger. Closer. She could see smaller shapes separating from them. Drop pods, carrying soldiers down to the surface. Zarathek abandoned the console and ran for the emergency exit. The procedures didn't matter anymore. Nothing mattered except getting away before the hunters found her. As she reached the door, explosions began to bloom like deadly flowers across the colony below. The maintenance tunnels under the processing station were dark and cold. Zarathek crawled through them as quietly as she could, her natural light dimmed to almost nothing. Her people's bodies could become nearly invisible when they were afraid, but the tunnels were made of metal that reflected even the smallest glow. She tried to control her breathing. Every sound seemed impossibly loud in the narrow space. Her knees scraped against the tunnel floor. Her clothing rustled with each movement. Even her heartbeat seemed to echo off the walls. Behind her, she could hear the humans entering the station. Heavy footsteps rang through the building like thunder. Voices called out to each other in their harsh language, full of hard sounds that hurt her ears. Something large crashed to the floor, probably the main door being torn off its hinges. Zarathek forced herself to keep moving. The tunnel system connected all the buildings in the mountain complex. If she could reach the old mining shafts on the far side, she might be able to hide until the humans left. If they ever left. The news reports had never been clear about that. Some colonies were destroyed completely. Others were occupied for months or years. A few were simply abandoned, left empty except for the bodies. She tried not to think about bodies. The tunnel split into 3 directions. Zarathek paused, trying to remember the layout. Left led to the main colony, probably full of humans by now. Right led to the communications center, also dangerous. Straight ahead went deeper into the mountain, toward the old mining equipment. She chose straight ahead. The sounds of the search were getting closer. She could hear humans moving through the levels above her, their equipment beeping and clicking. Sometimes they spoke to each other, but she couldn't understand the words. Their voices sounded calm, professional, like they were doing a normal job instead of hunting for people to kill. That somehow made it worse. Her sister had told her once that predators always stayed calm during a hunt. Getting excited made mistakes. Humans were supposed to be the best predators in the galaxy, so of course they would be calm. A new sound echoed through the tunnels, footsteps in the maintenance areas. They had found the access points. Zarathek began to move faster, no longer caring about noise. Her hands and knees slipped on the smooth metal. Her breathing was loud and ragged. Behind her, she could hear the hunters getting closer. The tunnel began to slope upward. She remembered this section led to an old storage room that connected to the mining shafts. Almost there. Just a little further. Node. She reached the end of the tunnel and pushed open the access panel. The storage room was full of old equipment covered in dust and spider webs. Broken machines sat in neat rows, waiting for repairs that would never come. Zarathek pulled herself out of the tunnel and ran toward the far door. Her legs were shaking from fear and exhaustion. The mining shafts were just beyond this room. Once she reached them, she could hide in the deep places where even humans might not follow. The door was locked. She pulled at the handle with desperate strength, but it wouldn't move. The lock was electronic, connected to the station's main computer. With the power in emergency mode, all the security doors had sealed automatically. She was trapped. Footsteps echoed in the tunnel behind her. Slow, steady, patient. The hunter was taking his time because he knew his prey had nowhere to go. Zarathek looked around the room frantically. There had to be another way out. A vent, a maintenance hatch, something. But the walls were solid rock and metal. The only entrance was the tunnel she had just crawled through. The only exit was blocked by a human. She pressed herself against the far wall and tried to become invisible. Her skin went completely clear, showing only the faint outline of her internal organs. It was the best camouflage her people had, but it only worked in natural settings with plants and rocks to blend into. In a room full of metal and dust, she would be easy to spot. The footsteps stopped at the tunnel entrance. For a moment, there was only silence. Then she heard the access panel being moved aside. A light appeared in the tunnel mouth, bright, white, artificial. It swept back and forth across the room like a searching eye. When it passed over her, Zarathek closed her eyes and held her breath. The light moved on. Maybe the human hadn't seen her. Maybe. The light came back and stopped directly on her face. Heavy boots hit the floor as the human pulled himself out of the tunnel. Zarathek opened her eyes and saw death walking toward her. The human was exactly as tall as the stories said, but somehow even more frightening in person. He wore black armor that covered him from head to toe, making him look more like a machine than a living thing. His helmet had a dark visor that reflected her terrified face back at her. In his hands was a weapon that seemed too large for any normal person to carry. The barrel was pointed straight at her heart. Zarathek had never seen a human before, but she knew this was how her people died, quickly, efficiently, without mercy. She closed her eyes and waited for the end. The weapon made a soft clicking sound. Some kind of safety being turned off. Probably. Any second now. But the killing shot never came. Instead, she heard something unexpected. The human made a sound that might have been surprise. The weapon lowered slightly. When Zarathek opened her eyes, the human was standing very still. His helmet was tilted to one side, as if he was studying her. The weapon was no longer pointed at her face. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The human seemed to be thinking about something, making a decision. Finally, he reached up and touched something on the side of his helmet. With a soft hiss, the visor retracted. Zarathek saw a human face for the first time in her life. It wasn't what she had expected at all. The human's face was nothing like the monsters from the news reports. He had brown eyes that looked tired, but kind. His skin was darker than Zarathek had expected, with small lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled often. There were no fangs, no claws, no empty holes where eyes should be. He looked almost normal. "Hey," the human said softly. His voice was deeper than any Velnari could manage, but it wasn't the mechanical growl she had been expecting. It was warm, even gentle. "Hey, it's okay." Zarathek didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. Her skin flickered with confusion. Rapid pulses of light that she couldn't control. Every instinct told her to run, but there was nowhere to go. The human slowly lowered his weapon until it pointed at the floor. With careful movements, he took a step back and raised his empty hand in what might have been a peace gesture. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said, speaking even more softly than before. The words were in the human trade language that most colonies used for business. Zarathek understood enough to catch the meaning, though his accent was strange. Not going to hurt her? That made no sense. Humans always hurt people. That was what humans did. But his eyes didn't look cruel. They looked concerned. The human studied her for a moment, taking in her transparent skin and the way her light patterns kept changing. When he spoke again, it was in broken Velnari, the words clumsy, but understandable. You, scared, he said slowly. Bad scared. Sorry. Zarathek's skin flashed bright with shock. A human was apologizing to her? In her own language? How did he even know how to speak Velnari? The human seemed to notice her surprise. He touched his ear, where Zarathek could now see a small device attached to his helmet. Translator, he explained, switching back to the trade language. Still learning. Your language is beautiful, but difficult. He thought her language was beautiful? Zarathek's skin flickered with emotions she couldn't name. This was nothing like what was supposed to happen. Humans were supposed to be cold and emotionless. They weren't supposed to learn other languages or care about beauty. The human looked around the room, taking in the locked door and the tunnel entrance. His expression grew more concerned. You're trapped, he observed. That's why you're so scared. You can't get away. He was right. But Zarathek didn't understand why he seemed upset about it. Wasn't that good from his perspective? Didn't hunters want their prey to be trapped? The human did something that shocked her even more. He knelt down, making himself smaller and less threatening. The weapon was still in his hands, but now it was clearly pointed away from her. My name is David, he said. David Chen. What's your name? Zarathek stared at him. Humans had names? Real names? Not just numbers or ranks? And he wanted to know hers? I don't have to tell you, she whispered in the trade language. David nodded seriously. That's right. You don't have to tell me anything. But I'd like to know what to call you. It seems rude to not use your name. Rude? A human was worried about being rude to her? Zarathek, she said, before she could stop herself. David smiled. It was the first time Zarathek had seen a human smile, and it transformed his whole face. He didn't look dangerous at all when he smiled. He looked kind. That's a beautiful name, David said. Zarathek. Does it mean something in your language? Little star, she answered automatically, then immediately regretted it. Why was she talking to him? Why was she answering his questions? Little star, David repeated, his pronunciation careful but good. That fits. Your skin. It glows like starlight. Zarathek looked down at herself. She had been so scared that her skin had gone almost completely clear. But now flickers of light were starting to return. Confused light, uncertain light, but light nonetheless. David noticed the change too. Your skin shows emotions, he said with obvious fascination. That's amazing. I've never seen anything like it. You're not going to kill me? Zarathek asked quietly. David's expression became serious again. Why would I kill you? But you're human, Zarathek said, as if that explained everything. David was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was sad. I know what you've heard about us, he said. I know what the news reports say. Some of it is even true. Humans can be dangerous when we need to be. But we're not monsters, Zarathek. We don't kill innocent people. Then why are you here? She asked. David's jaw tightened. Because some very bad people have been stealing money that was supposed to keep colonies like this one alive. Money for food, medicine, life support equipment. People have died because of what they've done. Zarathek knew about the supply problems. Everyone in the colony did. Shipments had been arriving late, or not at all. The medical center was running out of important medicines. Some of the older atmospheric processors were breaking down because replacement parts never came. We're here to arrest those people and stop them from hurting anyone else, David continued. But we're not here to hurt workers like you. You're exactly the kind of person we're trying to protect. Protect? Humans wanted to protect her people? I don't understand, Zarathek said. David shifted slightly, and Zarathek noticed something that made her gasp. There was a dark stain on his left arm, barely visible against the black armor. You're hurt, she said. David looked down at his arm with surprise, as if he had forgotten about the injury. It's nothing serious, just a scratch from some debris during the landing. But you're bleeding, Zarathek pointed out. Her people's natural instincts included caring for the injured, even when they were afraid. David seemed touched by her concern. I'll be fine. It's not the first time I've been hurt, and it won't be the last. He paused, then looked at her with those kind brown eyes. But you're hurt too, he said gently. Your arm. You cut it on something sharp. Zarathek looked down and was surprised to see that he was right. In her panic to crawl through the tunnels, she had scraped her arm against a piece of jagged metal. She had been too scared to notice the pain. May I help? David asked. I have medical supplies. Zarathek stared at him in amazement. A human soldier wanted to help heal her wounds? This had to be some kind of trick. But when she looked at his face, she saw only genuine concern. And despite everything she had been taught about humans, Zarathek found herself nodding yes. David moved slowly, giving Zarathek plenty of time to change her mind. He set his weapon down on the floor, far enough away that he couldn't grab it quickly, but close enough that she could see he wasn't abandoning it completely. From a pouch on his belt, he pulled out a small white box marked with red symbols. Zarathek recognized it as a medical kit, though it was designed for humans rather than Velnari. This might not be perfect for your species, David said apologetically, but the basic principles should be the same. Clean the wound, stop any bleeding, protect it from infection. He opened the kit and showed her the contents. Bandages, cleaning solutions, small tools she didn't recognize. Everything was sized for human use. But David was already thinking about how to adapt it. May I see your arm? He asked. Zarathek hesitantly extended her injured limb. David's hands were much larger than hers, with thick fingers that seemed too clumsy for delicate work. But when he touched her arm, his grip was incredibly gentle. The cut isn't too deep, he said, examining the wound carefully. But there are small pieces of metal in it. Those need to come out first. He pulled out a pair of tiny forceps and showed them to her. This might hurt a little. I'll go as slowly as you need. Zarathek nodded, though her skin was flickering with nervousness. David noticed the light patterns and paused. Your skin, he said with wonder. It's like watching emotions in real time. The way the light moves. It's beautiful. You think it's beautiful? Zarathek asked. Of course, David said as he began carefully removing metal fragments. On Earth, we have some creatures that make light. But nothing like this. Nothing that can show feelings so clearly. His touch was amazingly gentle for such large hands. Each time Zarathek winced. David paused and waited for her to relax before continuing. Tell me about your home, he said as he worked. What's it like being able to show emotions through light? Zarathek found herself talking almost without realizing it. She told him how Velnari children learned to control their light patterns as they grew up. How lovers could share feelings without words. How artists created beautiful displays that told stories in pure emotion. It sounds wonderful, David said sincerely. Human faces show some emotion, but nothing as clear as this. Sometimes we have to guess what other people are really feeling. He finished removing the metal pieces and reached for a cleaning solution. This might sting, he warned. It did sting, but not as much as Zarathek had expected. David kept talking while he worked, his voice calm and soothing. I have a sister who would love to meet you, he said. She's a scientist who studies bioluminescence. She's spent her whole career looking at glowing fish and fireflies. But she's never seen anything as sophisticated as this. Your sister studies light-making creatures? Zarathek asked. Among other things. She's brilliant. Much smarter than me. David's voice was full of obvious pride and affection. She always wanted to work with alien species, but humans haven't met many other intelligent races. Most of the galaxy doesn't trust us enough to allow scientific exchanges. Because you're dangerous, Zarathek said. David nodded sadly as he applied antibiotic cream to her wound. Because we can be dangerous, yes. Humans have a reputation for violence, and some of it is deserved. When someone threatens people we care about, we can become intense. He began wrapping her arm with a bandage that was too large for her slim limb. With careful folds and adjustments, he made it fit properly. But most humans aren't soldiers, he continued. Most of us are teachers, farmers, artists, scientists, parents. We build things instead of destroying them. We grow gardens and write songs, and tell stories to our children. Zarathek watched his face as he talked. There was a sadness in his eyes that she didn't understand. Do you have children? She asked. David's smile was both happy and painful. Not yet. But I hope to someday. When this is over. When I can go home and be a normal person instead of a soldier. Don't you like being a soldier? I'm good at it, David said carefully. And sometimes being good at something means you have to do it, even when you'd rather be doing something else. People need protecting, and I can protect them, so I do. He finished with the bandage and packed his medical kit away. Zarathek's arm felt much better, and she was amazed by how well the human supplies had worked on her physiology. Thank you, she said quietly. You're welcome. David smiled again, and Zarathek noticed that it reached his eyes. How does it feel? Better, much better. She flexed her arm experimentally. You're very good at this. I've had a lot of practice, unfortunately. Soldiers get hurt, a lot. David picked up his weapon again, but he held it casually, pointed at the floor. Zarathek, I need to ask you something. Her skin flickered with renewed nervousness. Are there other people in this facility? Other workers who might be hiding? Zarathek hesitated. Was this a trap? Was he going to hurt other people? David seemed to understand her concern. I'm not asking so I can hunt them down, he said gently. I'm asking because this place isn't safe anymore. There was damage during the attack, and some of the atmospheric processors are failing. People could be in danger from gas leaks or system failures. You want to help them? Zarathek asked. Yes, David said simply. That's what humans do. We help people. Looking at his kind face, at the gentle way he had treated her injuries, Zarathek found herself believing him. There might be others in the deep tunnels, she said. The old mining sections where the air recyclers are. David nodded seriously. Can you show me where? I have equipment that can detect dangerous gases, and my team can evacuate anyone who needs help. Your team? Zarathek's skin flashed with alarm. Other soldiers like me, David explained. People who want to help. Are they? Are they like you? David understood what she was really asking. They're good people, Zarathek. I promise you that. We all volunteered for this mission because we wanted to help colonies that were being robbed. He stood up slowly, giving her time to get used to his full height again. Will you help us help your people? He asked. Zarathek looked at this human who had treated her wounds and spoken kindly to her, who had learned her language and called her beautiful, who worried about being rude, and talked about his sister with love. Everything she had been taught about humans said she should run, should hide, should never trust them. But David Chen had shown her something different. He had shown her that maybe, just maybe, the stories were wrong. Yes, she said quietly. I'll help you. David helped Zarathek to her feet and led her toward the tunnel entrance. As they moved, he spoke quietly into a device attached to his collar. Chen to actual. I've found a civilian in Section 7. She's injured, but mobile. Requesting medical support and possible evacuation assistance. The device crackled back with a voice that sounded surprisingly similar to David's, warm and professional. Copy that, Chen. Medical team is en route. What's the civilian's status? Frightened, but cooperative. She's offered to help us locate other survivors who might be trapped in the old mining sections. Understood. Good work, Sergeant. Rodriguez and Kim are heading your way. Zarathek's skin flickered with nervousness as David helped her into the maintenance tunnel. More humans are coming? Just 2, David assured her. Rodriguez is our medic. She's much better at treating injuries than I am. And Kim is our engineer. If anyone is trapped, he'll know how to get them out safely. End 1. They crawled through the tunnel system together. David moving awkwardly in his armor, but never complaining. When they reached a junction, Zarathek pointed toward the deeper passages. The old sections are that way, she said. But some of the tunnels are blocked. There was a cave-in last year. Kim will know how to handle that, David said confidently. They emerged into a wider corridor where 2 more humans were waiting. Zarathek's first instinct was to hide behind David, but she forced herself to look at them. The medic, Rodriguez, was smaller than David and had kind eyes that reminded Zarathek of her aunt. She carried a larger medical kit and smiled when she saw Zarathek. Hello there, Rodriguez said in careful Velnari. I'm Maria. David told us you were hurt. May I take a look? The engineer, Kim, was about David's size, but younger. He was studying a handheld device that showed the layout of the tunnel system. The atmospheric readings are getting worse in the deep sections, he reported. If anyone is down there, we need to get them out soon. David turned to Zarathek. How many people usually work the night shift in this area? Raid. RO. 2,000. DRO. Maybe 10 or 12, Zarathek said. But when the alarms started, everyone was supposed to go to the emergency shelters. Some might not have made it, Rodriguez pointed out. Especially if they were in the deep sections when the attack started. Kim nodded grimly. The emergency lockdown sealed a lot of passages. People could be trapped. David looked at Zarathek. We need to move fast. Can you guide us to where people might be hiding? Zarathek nodded and led them deeper into the mountain. As they walked, she listened to the humans talk among themselves. Their conversation was nothing like what she had expected from terrifying soldiers. Did you remember to pack extra breathing masks? Rodriguez asked Kim. Of course, and portable air scrubbers, just in case. What about sedatives for panic attacks? Got them. David, how did you manage to calm her down so quickly? Rodriguez gestured toward Zarathek. David glanced back with a slight smile. I just treated her like a person instead of a target. Amazing how well that works. Not all humans would think of that. Kim observed quietly. Then, they shouldn't be soldiers, David replied firmly. They reached a sealed blast door marked with warnings in multiple languages. Kim studied his scanner and frowned. There are definitely people on the other side, he said. But the air quality is dangerously bad. Carbon dioxide buildup, and some kind of industrial leak. How long to cut through? David asked. 20 minutes with the plasma cutter. But that might be too long if they're already having trouble breathing. Rodriguez was checking her medical equipment. I can treat gas exposure, but only if we get to them soon. David turned to Zarathek. Is there another way in? Emergency access? Maintenance shafts? Anything? Zarathek thought carefully. There's an old ventilation shaft that connects to the main chamber, but it's very narrow. None of you would fit. The 3 humans looked at each other. Zarathek could see them having a silent conversation with their eyes. Finally, David spoke. Zarathek, would you be willing to crawl through that shaft and tell the people inside that help is coming? We can give you a communicator so you can talk to us. You want me to help rescue my own people? Zarathek asked in amazement. You're the only one small enough to fit, Rodriguez explained. And they'll trust you more than they'd trust us. But what if it's dangerous? Zarathek asked. David knelt down to her level again. It might be. I won't lie to you about that. But those people will die if we can't reach them soon. You could save their lives. And we'll be right here, Kim added. If anything goes wrong, we'll cut through that door, no matter how long it takes. Zarathek looked at these three humans who were risking their lives to save people they had never met. People who belonged to a species that had always feared and avoided them. Why? She asked. Why do you care what happens to us? David was quiet for a moment before answering. Because that's what people do for each other. We help. We protect. We save lives when we can. But we're not your people, Zarathek pointed out. Yes, you are, Rodriguez said simply. Your people. That's enough. Kim was already setting up his equipment to cut through the door. The shaft entrance is about 50 meters back, he told Zarathek. I can give you a communicator and an emergency breathing mask, just in case. Zarathek accepted the equipment, her skin glowing with determination. For the first time in her life, she was going to be brave instead of just hiding. As she crawled into the ventilation shaft, she could hear David's voice through the communicator. You're doing something amazing, little star, he said quietly. Your people are lucky to have you. An hour later, 12 Velnari workers were safely evacuated from the sealed chamber. They were weak and scared, but alive. Rodriguez treated them for gas exposure, while Kim repaired the damaged atmospheric systems. David sat with Zarathek as they waited for the evacuation transport to arrive. Around them, her rescued co-workers whispered among themselves, amazed by the gentle treatment they had received from the humans. I have something for you, David said, pulling a small object from his pocket. It was a piece of clear crystal that caught the emergency lighting and threw it back in rainbow patterns. It's quartz from Earth, he explained. My sister sent it to me. She said it reminded her of starlight. Zarathek accepted the crystal with wonder. Why are you giving this to me? To remember, David said. To remember that not all humans are what the stories say. Some of us just want to help. Zarathek held the crystal up to the light, watching it sparkle. What will happen now? Now we finish our mission and go home, David said. And hopefully, people like you will help both our species understand each other better. Will I see you again? David smiled. Maybe. If I'm very lucky. As the evacuation transport arrived, Zarathek watched the human soldiers help her people aboard with infinite patience and care. They spoke gently, moved slowly, and never showed any sign of the violence they were supposed to be famous for. Later, in the refugee camp, Zarathek would watch news reports that called the humans brutal invaders. She would hear people talk about the attack with fear and hatred. But she would touch the crystal in her pocket and remember David Chen's kind eyes. She would remember Rodriguez's gentle hands and Kim's determination to save people he had never met. And she would start writing her own story. A story about the night she faced a human and braced for death, yet found herself given something far more precious than her life. She found herself given hope. The news reports were wrong, she would write. Humans were not monsters. They were people, just like her. People who could be kind and brave and good. People who risked their lives to save strangers. People who called her beautiful. People who gave her starlight to remember them by. In her small room in the refugee center, surrounded by others who still spoke of humans with fear, Zarathek began to write the truth, and with each word, her skin glowed a little brighter, like a star sharing its light with the darkness.